if you're coaching a high school sport, for example, and you are not developing strength with your players, you're in the dark ages. You're behind.
Think about in T-ball, all the parents out there. Think about coach pitch baseball or softball, or at any young age, who's the best players on the field? It's the players that are the strongest
kids,
the fastest, and I would say most explosive, which has to do with their aggressiveness. They're the best.
How important is strength training when it comes to developing athletes? Well, you're going to find out at least what Pat and I think about that answer in today's episode, because we have devoted an entire episode to talk about the vitality of developing strength in order to be the best athlete that you can be. We've been asked to talk about this in more detail. We have alluded to it in several episodes, and today we are going to unpack it and talk about it for about an hour. So sit back and enjoy today's episode, because it comes at you right now.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Pat Martin. I'm here with my buddy Chris Stewart. Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Yourself?
Not great.
Uh-oh. What's going on, my brother?
It's been a long, hard week, Coach.
At work, at home? Oh, no.
Yeah.
I know what you're referring to.
Right.
Well, I've had a great week. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
My quarterback had a perfect QB rating this week.
Well, sports will humble you, right?
It wasn't just a couple episodes ago. I remember you saying something like, hey, the tide has turned.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. For
those of you that don't know, Pat is a huge Browns fan. He is a dog pound Browns fan.
I'm a dog pound guy.
Yeah.
So I predicted a 16-0 season, Coach.
16-0, that's bold.
Oh, yeah, it's dangerous.
That's dangerous.
Right?
Well, yeah, that's Patriots-like.
But the Titans put a whipping on us. They beat us down. So, like I said, we're humbled. I have to learn from it. I have to move forward. I got to adjust my prediction.
To 15-1?
To 15-1.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's what you got to do, though.
Exactly.
They're going to bounce back
Hey,
this
we're
week.
coming.
I told you they're bouncing back.
Listen, the tide has turned, okay? And I know Coach Roark was on here. That's when that came up. Coach Roark's listening. I'm not phased, okay? I'm still the same. I have the same confidence as I ever did. Baker will be back next Monday night. Tune in. The Browns are coming.
That's right.
Okay?
They have Monday night.
Yeah, so here we go.
All
But, as I was watching the game, Coach, the thought actually came to my mind. I know these guys are professional athletes, but the Titans seem to be mentally and physically better than the Cleveland Browns on Sunday. And the Browns were frustrated, and they were getting a lot of personal fouls and unnecessary roughness penalties. And the thought came to me. It just seemed like, man, they seem so mentally and physically better prepared than we are. I say we as a Browns fan, as the Cleveland Browns. And I thought in my mind, I wonder what from an amateur sports perspective, I wonder how you get that physical and mental edge over your opponent.
I think we have the answer today.
I think we do.
It just so happens to be today's topic, right?
Yes. Strength and agility training, right, Coach?
That's correct.
We've had some people ask about it, and it's something that I know you're passionate about as a baseball and a softball coach, and you've implemented into your programs the last few years, and it's something that I'm drawn to more and more as my kids get older. So we're gonna spend this episode talking about strength and agility, and all the different concepts that go along with that, and a couple different thoughts and questions that might come up. So I'm excited about this episode, and I hope we have some people out there that are ready to embrace this idea of our kids strengthening themselves. And I mentioned mental strength a minute ago. one of the ways you gain mental strength is with just physical strength training.
Get stronger.
Yeah.
Because you're going to gain confidence.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest things I see with our athletes. When I say our athletes, I'm speaking of the ones that I train at Athens High School, particularly. It used to be the Athens baseball team, so the boys baseball team, but now this will be my third year training the girls softball team, and then I potentially may even train other female athletes at Athens High School this year. We'll see where that goes, but one of the biggest things that I see that they develop by being in the weight room on a consistent basis is when they step on that field, they believe that they're more powerful.
Yeah.
And that is huge. Just as much as the physical development is helping their performance, the mental strength training that they're getting by knowing I have gotten stronger. I know where I was in September of last year, and I know that right now I am several, I don't know, it's up by that point, it's 50, 60 days in the weight room. I am that many more days stronger. And that's an incredible mental advantage that a player has just by doing that, itself. But you have to know what you're doing. And that's, pretty much why we're doing this episode here, because we've had people, like you said, who have asked about, us talking about strength training and not just the importance of it, but just, what do I do?
Right.
When should I start? How should I start? What if I don't have a clue what I'm doing? Where do I begin, and how can I begin? Because I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to say something here that is it's bold. All right.
Okay. Is it 15-1 bold?
It is. Yeah. Well, it's not that bold, but I'm confident in it. And I'm going to say this. If you're coaching a high school sport, for example, and you are not developing strength with your players, you're in the dark ages. You're behind. And I'm going to tell you right now, I know when I looked on, in the state of Ohio, which is where we record from, I'll talk to baseball coaches alone here, because that's where I'm at. That's baseball, softball coaches. In the month of August, we're not allowed to make contact with our high school, with our players,
right,
in terms of coaching. Now, you are actually allowed to strength train. The OHSAA has redefined what you're allowed to do in August. It used to be you couldn't even send an email out to them or anything, but they're like, okay, we understand strength and conditioning is something that needs to be happening year round. It needs to be happening constantly, and you shouldn't take a break on that. So you are still allowed to be in the weight room. But what I saw was most of the schools in our state, they'll take August off, work on the field, whatever, the coaches will. But then September 1st, you know what I saw when I looked at Twitter on September 1st? I saw my feed was completely filled, because I follow baseball and softball coaches. My feed was full of people saying, tomorrow morning, it was Labor Day weekend, so Tuesday morning, our
strength training,
our anyone who's interested in playing baseball, anyone who's interested in playing softball next spring, we have a meeting in such and such classroom at this time to go over our off-season strength and conditioning plan that's going to begin in, some of them said middle of September, some of them said beginning of October, but they're all saying it. And I just want to tell you, if you're not doing that, don't expect to win. Don't expect to win at the highest level. Just don't expect to. You're not going to. And I know that we have a lot of small schools in our area that have had some good success and things like that. But that success will stop the moment you meet a team that's strength training their kids year round. And if you want if your kids want to be the best that they can possibly be, you've got to have an off-season strength program with them. And I know there are coaches, they're like, I don't get paid enough to do that. You're talking about a year-round thing, and I just don't have that time. Well, you know what? Don't do it. Yeah. Don't coach. I mean, if I'm going to, I get upset about this because that's what I've been there. I understand. Don't take the daggone job if you don't want to help people be the best they can be.
Right.
And I'm getting mad now, aren't I?
I'm moving away from
Sorry
you.
about that, Pat. But I'm passionate about it. Listen, you got to have a love for it. And when you see kids, if you're going to step on the field and you're going to get on them because they're not giving their best, I'm wondering, what did you do in October, Coach? Were you giving your best to them?
Yeah.
That's so. Listen, when we talk about strength training, it's part of your program. It's practice. It's You've got to do it. You've got to do it. You just have to do it.
Right. Yeah, I don't have the experience level that you do, and obviously my kids are just now at the age, I'll say that in quotes, where this is something that I'm thinking about. I'll be honest with you, it's not. I started thinking about it a few years ago. Really, my first exposure to it was my oldest son Jake played on a basketball team, and it was Mike Bartram, who is an assistant coach for the Philadelphia Eagles now, and Cass Cleland was the two coaches on that basketball team, and they went into practice and they were doing jump ropes and they were doing speed ladders and they were doing different stuff like that, and it was. To me, it was kind of odd at the time. And I was thinking,
like, how is this helping them shoot a basketball?
Yeah. And, we were preparing for some tournaments and things like that. And I thought, that's kind of odd. But I thought, man, I'm not for sure. Like you said, how's it going to help us shoot this basketball? I'm like, I'm not for sure this is going to prepare us all that much for these tournaments we're going to. But this is good stuff. And, I could see how this, might benefit the kids in the long run doing this. And I know their teams always did it. And I know they've been really big on that from at least from a football side for some years now. But I think it started there, and as I've went on, it's just as you dig into this, it's almost like it's if you aren't aware of it, it's almost like it's like a hidden treasure out there.
Yeah.
Because just some of the things that you hear, we were talking the other day about Mark Ripto, and what he said about high school athletes.
Yeah.
I
looked for it to bring it in here because I wanted to quote it directly, and I wanted to give, and we'll give him credit. I'm almost positive it was him that said it. It may have been on a podcast because I thought I read it, and I thought, well, if I read it, then I can find it online. But what it was essentially this: was he is such a huge believer that strength, that building strength, that training kids, young athletes to get stronger is the biggest reason why they're going to perform better on the field. The stronger you are, the more powerful you're going to be, and if you're more powerful, the more your power is athleticism, and unfortunately, power is something that it's very closely tied to genetics. You can look at a kid out on a playground and you can pick out the kids that have power. I mean, they're quick, they're springy type kids, And so unfortunately, some kids have more power than others. I mean, that's just the way it is. And so without strength training, those kids are going to be pretty good anyway. They could be a lot better if they got stronger.
Yes.
But here's the thing. There is something that is always true. Strength is different than power. Strength is the ability for you to apply force to something external, to a resistance, right? So I think of like an offensive lineman going up against a defensive lineman, and they're just that's external resistance. And whoever's stronger is going to be more powerful, is going to be able to apply more force. They're going to move that person, and if you got more balance, there's a lot to it, right? And so what happens is this is what we need to be able to do is recognize that the greatest thing that we can do for our teams is develop athleticism. And if power and athleticism are linked together, that means that athleticism, by and large, is genetic as well. Some kids are more athletic naturally. But the missing ingredient in there, the thing that we can add in, is for every little bit of strength that you develop, you can increase your power. You can increase in power. So we can't necessarily increase power, like just increase power. We can't look at a kid. We're not God. We can't look at a kid and say you're more athletic. We can't touch the. But what we know we can increase is strength. Yeah. And so when you're increasing strength, you're helping to increase power, which then means you're increasing their athleticism. Yeah. And so that is essential. So I guess to get back to Ripto's thing. Right. He said that he believes so much in getting stronger and how getting stronger is going to help you to achieve the goals that you might have athletically, that he challenges kids, like between your 14-year-old year and your 15-year-old year, for example, So let's say it's your freshman year. Nobody's going to do this. But he said, but this is his challenge. He says, if you give me a kid who is coming into his freshman year and he buys into this, and he comes to me and I tell him, take this year off from playing your sport. Just take this year out, whatever sport it is you play, or if you play 3 of them, take it off from playing sports, and you come in with me and work with me for a year on getting stronger, which means you're working with barbells, which means every time you come in the weight room, we're increasing weight little by little. It's going to be a basic program. He talks about it being a novice program where it's just 5 basic lifts: a squat, a deadlift, bench press, and rows, and and he'll eventually teach them how to power clean as well, and then pull-ups as well. Big believer in pull-ups. But he's like, you know what? Come in and do and work with me for a year. Get stronger. You come out your sophomore year, you're going to bypass most of those other kids.
Yeah.
You're going to be at a place where you never would have been by your senior year if you come in and get stronger your freshman year. Your sophomore year, and then you basically devote yourself to this every year. You are going to be light years ahead of where you even believed you could be.
Yeah.
And listen, I trust this guy. There are some people out there in the world that have been doing this for years, and he strength trains, a lot of athletes. He's a power lifter by nature. His Mark's thing is he's just, I'm going to help you get as strong as possible. And then you see these other, like Zach Decant that you've mentioned, and Eric Cressy, who trains a lot of baseball players. You see them giving a lot more mobility type exercises and then putting those into their workout plans and things, to increase agility and some people call it functional strength. It's kind of a buzzword. But it's basically that, they're understanding that we're not just trying to get somebody to be as strong as they can be. We're also developing athletes, and they need to be able to create the movements out there. And so they're thinking in those lines as well. But one of the things I've noticed about all of these guys that do like baseball specific work with baseball players, work with softball players in strength training, is the core foundation of those workouts goes back to what Ripto teaches. You got to get under the barbell. You got to get stronger. You got to increase weight.
I think we know things like this. We see it. I mean, think about because the counter argument to what he's saying there is you got to get your reps, right? You got to be practicing your skill. But we think about in T-ball, all the parents out there. Think about T-ball. Think about minor league or coach pitch baseball or softball or at any young age. Who's the best players on the field? We've mentioned this before. It's the players that are the strongest
kids,
the fastest, and I would say most explosive, which has to do with their aggressiveness. They're the best. They're the best, and they haven't had a lot of reps. You know what I mean? They're very young, but they're the best.
And sometimes that's the kid that you look at and you go, man, he's just raw, isn't he?
Yeah.
If we could develop his skill a little bit more, look at how much. But what are we saying about the raw kid? He's one of the best players out there.
Yeah,
that's what we're saying.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've definitely said that before about certain kids.
Because they don't look polished.
They're not polished, but they still get the job done at an acceptable level because they're athletes.
I'm going to tell you right now, it's those raw kids that sometimes aren't as polished. They'll catch the eye of the scouts.
Yeah.
At the next level.
Because the scouts know that they can polish them.
They're looking for athleticism.
Right? They can make it work.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
So if you're focused now as a 12-year-old, 11-year-old, 8, 9, 10, on making sure that they're looking polished, all right, that's fine. But that's not going to be what gets them recruited.
Right.
What's going to get them recruited is their strength.
Yeah.
Is their athleticism.
People know that too because they talk about, big left-handers.
Yeah.
Big left-handers are a commodity for college baseball coaches.
Sure they are.
We're not talking about stats. We're not talking about how hard they throw. Big left-handers.
Well, you say big. Yeah. You if you're over 6 foot.
Yeah.
6 foot tall and you're left-handed, you could throw not hard enough to break a pane of glass, and you probably get a look by a college coach.
Yeah,
because they're like, I can do something with that guy
because of the physical attribute.
Yep.
So it's important. You mentioned a minute ago, or a second ago, you said something about 8, 9, 10, 11. I think when you say that, most people are going to be, they're going to say, whoa, wait a second. Weightlifting is dangerous for kids.
That is a myth.
Yeah.
That is a myth. Find me a study that says strength training with weights is dangerous for kids.
Yeah.
I don't know where it started. I don't know who started it. I understand why people say that, but if you look up, you can look up, and you and I talked about this before we came on today, the Mayo Clinic basically states that it is perfectly healthy for a child as young as 7 or 8 years old to begin strength training, to begin building strength by using free weights and using resistance. And I actually, I didn't necessarily know this. I didn't believe in this or understand this. I guess I should say I bought into that myth as well. Because it sounds right. Kids
Logical.
are still growing. Is it
Growth plates is the
Is it
thing.
going to stunt their growth?
Yeah.
And there just isn't any study that shows that to be true.
Right.
And that's what we have to understand. And I think what we have to realize is the problem with young kids lifting weights is a lot of people don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And so it is going to be more dangerous for younger kids because their balance isn't very good. And what's the key to being able to perform a movement with perfect form? Balance. And so I think that's why sometimes people will say, well, wait till you get to puberty, because you got a little bit more of an adult body, right? You're a little bit more naturally athletic. You've got a little bit better balance, because I think it's easier at that point to make the movements with correct form. But you can teach a young kid how to do this. You can teach young kids how to properly squat. You can teach them how to properly deadlift. Get a broomstick and just teach them the form. Teach them the form. And once they get that balance, it really is okay to do. And honestly, kids for years and generations had been strength training. We just didn't know it. They were out in the yard strength training.
That's a great point. That's, I've in talking with people, that's I always hit back on that, is the kids aren't getting the strength training that, now that they got in the past.
So.
How many monkey bar sets are in yards?
Oh, you're not allowed to have them now. Not above a certain height today.
I didn't know that, but that makes,
Oh.
is that against
if a
code?
kid falls beyond 4 feet, buddy, you better be landing on some mulch or something soft. Did you see the old 1930s? There was like a picture I saw of 1930s on Twitter or something, a playground on a schoolyard, and it was just like a bunch of ladders connected to each other. And these kids are 20 feet off the ground with concrete underneath them and stuff. And I'm like, holy cow, people would be having a fit if that was on a playground today.
Wow. But that makes sense that, they don't do the stuff that we used to do.
Monkey bars is a great one. You
Oh,
start
yeah.
on one side, and
Yeah.
your grip strength. You're basically doing little pull-ups, as you walk across those monkey bars.
Yeah. And you know what? Guess what? That's dangerous. They could fall. They could hurt themselves. Yeah, hurt themselves bad,
Yeah.
But like you said, it's about knowing what,
Yeah.
how you go about it. I think when people think about lifting weights, they think about going into a gym, loading as much weight as you can onto a bar and trying to get that up.
And no one should start there.
Right.
If you're 16 years old, you shouldn't start there if you've never lifted before. I would begin a 16-year-old in the same way I would begin an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
By showing them the proper movements, the proper forms, how to engage certain muscles, how to make sure that you're sucking that belly button through your back and just engaging your core to be as strong and athletic as possible as you perform these movements. And sometimes that takes weeks. When we work out with our softball team, you have girls come in with different levels of training already under their belt. Some girls have been training for a few years. Other girls are just coming in from junior high and they're like, I've never been in a weight room before. What do I do? Well, we teach them all. We start with all of them all over again and say, this is what we're going to do. These are the main lifts that we're going to do. So we're going to show you the 5, the perfect movements and what your body should look like on these 5 main lifts. And we're going to make sure that you all can do that before we allow you to put any weight on the, to allow you to lift with bars or dumbbells or whatever. And then we just gradually work into that. We gradually work into, and you got to be patient. Strength training, you got to be patient with strength training because you're not going to build a bunch of strength overnight. That's the problem that we live in. We live in a world where everybody wants to get, they want to start today and be as strong as they can be next week.
Yeah.
You're not going to do that.
Instant gratification.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Strength training is delayed gratification, but I will say this: there's gratification in it. You can see it. I saw it 2 years ago when I first started working out with the girls softball team at the high school. There were a lot of girls who had never been in the weight room before, and I remember watching them play. they weren't very powerful on the field when they hit the ball. They would hit a lot of ground balls. They we had some girls we had a couple girls that liked to slap from the left-handed side, but when they slapped, they couldn't hit it to the outfield. Like they couldn't hit it hard down the left field line, or so they would just slap a little ground ball to the third baseman, and if you weren't fast enough, they'd get thrown out. I'm like, what good is that? Let's get you stronger so that you can, because if you get stronger, you're actually going to be able to control the bat better. Your hands are stronger, and you're going to be able to be a better slapper if that's what kind of hitting you want to do. And it was so much fun to see. I'll never forget the first girl that put a bat in her hands in the first scrimmage. She took a swing, and I swear when it came off the bat, I thought it was gone. Her first at bat in the first scrimmage of the spring. It was freezing cold outside. We're scrimmaging at home. Athens High School field has this big 8-foot wooden wall at the softball field, and she hits one to the left center field gap. I'm like, oh my gosh, Kaylin just hit it out of here, and it hit the top of the wall and bounced back in. She had a double. She was ecstatic out there. The first thing she said to me when she got into the dugout, I'll never forget it. The first thing she said to me when she scored, came into the dugout, was, "I love squats." That's what she said.
Yeah.
Because she realized all of that hard work and all that pushing her to add weight. I know you don't want to add weight. You don't feel like you can lift any more than you did Monday. Today's Wednesday. You don't think you could lift more, but you can. Add a little bit of weight, and just making her do it and pushing her through those. She's like, I hated it then, but I love it now. And that's the gratification part.
Boy, I can relate to that, definitely. Well, you mentioned a squat there, and I think we've mentioned a couple other movements that are important for a strength and agility program. What are some core movements that a strength and agility program should focus on for people out there listening and wanting to know, what direction do they go? What do I need to focus? What do we need to be doing when we go to the gym?
One thing. I mentioned I think there are 5 main movements that if someone is going to build a foundation of strength that has never lifted before, they really you need to know how to squat. You need to know how to squat deep, how to do a proper squat to get to at least parallel to the ground, where you're from knee to thigh, is parallel to the ground or deeper. You need to deadlift. It's the most powerful lift you could ever do. You're engaging every muscle in your body when you deadlift. You need to press, bench press. You need to row, and that's with some call it a Pendlay row. That's what the 45-pound bar is. Often the name brand is a Pendlay bar. You can do a barbell row. You can also do dumbbell rows. You can also bench press with dumbbells. We do most of our bench pressing as we get in near the season in softball and baseball is with dumbbells.
Yeah.
So we'll do single arm, and it's just the range of motion is a little bit, you can control that a little bit better, and so it's actually easier on your shoulders for throwing athletes, and so we will bench a lot more with dumbbells.
Actually, yeah, you can do. I mean, you could squat with dumbbells too.
You can goblet squat, and and that's the part of the progression as well. If a kid has not yet been able to lift a 45-pound bar, they'll start with body squats.
Yes.
And I'll make them body squat with perfect form.
Body squat meaning you have no weight in your hand at all.
Yeah, you're in a prayer position, basically with your hands in front of you, your chest out, butt out, and your feet are slightly angled outward, and you're keeping your knees behind your toes as you squat down. You're basically sitting backwards, sitting down as though you're like sitting on a toilet. You're sitting backwards, and then you're exploding up. And I'll make sure they can do 50 of those body squats before we give them a dumbbell. We'll say, okay, let's put a 20-pound dumbbell in your hand. And you hold it like a goblet. And now we're going to do that. And then we just gradually increase. Once they get to 40 pounds, we'll start putting like a PVC pipe on their back so they can get a feel for how to grip a bar. And they'll go ahead and do their goblet squats, but they'll also do some body squats with a pipe or with a broomstick or something where they can get that grip. And then once we know that they can squat 45 pounds, well, that's how much the bar weighs. So let's get them under the bar, and there you go. There's your progression.
Yes.
And and at that point, the reps is 5. We will do 5 sets. When you're lifting the maximum amount of weight that you're going to lift on that day. So it's not your max, but it's the maximum amount that you're going to lift on that day. When you're into your work sets, we do 5 sets of 5 reps. It's one of the best ways to build strength. You get 5 good reps in, you get a good couple minutes of rest, and then you're able to get under there and do it again. 5 good reps. And the total volume then, of course, is 25 reps because you got to add them all up.
Right. I think that's true for a lot of things that a lot of resources that I'm going to right now.
Yeah.
I know Zach Deckant kind of feels the same way, and Mark Ripto does the same thing. But you're talking, when you say work sets, this is a safety thing too. People will skip this. What happened? What comes before work sets?
Warm up.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a progression.
And that's true for anything, right? You're not going to go out and throw a baseball without warming up, are you?
Right.
I mean, you're not going to go do anything.
Shouldn't.
You shouldn't go. Yeah. I mean, it's I don't let the kids take their gloves. I mean, what do kids do when they come to the ballpark? They immediately want to
Hey,
find
throw?
Where's that ball bucket, right?
Yeah.
Who's throwing with me, right?
Yeah.
And you go out to the outfield and you start throwing. Our kids aren't allowed to do that. They got to keep the balls and the balls and the gloves in the dugout, because we got to get to the outfield to warm up first. You got to get a sweat going before you're allowed to throw.
Yeah.
On any team that I coach anyway. But anyway, to get back to that, if you're in the weight room, you got to do the same thing. You got to get just a dynamic warm up in where you're activating your muscles. We'll do some karaoke, some sprints and things like that. But then even before you lift the weight, you got to do warm up sets. So for example, just I guess to give you an example, if let's say a kid is squatting 225 pounds today, five sets of 5, 225 pounds.
Yep.
So his warm up set is going to look like this. He'll do a set of 10 body squats. So perfect form, body squats, set of 10. And then he'll get under the bar, do a set of 10 with just the 45-pound bar. Set of 10, get that. That's warm up round number 2. And then he'll put on, let's say he puts on the 25s. So he's got 95 pounds on, right? 2 sets of 25-pound weights on the side of the bar. They'll do a set of 8 of those. So 8, crank out 8 of those. And then he'll put the 45 pounds on. So now he's got 135 pounds on the bar. He'll do a set of 5 of those. Okay. And then he'll add 25 more. And he's got 185 pounds on. He'll do a set of 3 of those. Okay. And so now, how many warm-up sets is that? It's about 5 warm-up sets or so, right? So now muscles feel, yeah, you're a little tired, but rest, get yourself rested up, because now your muscles are ready to go. Put the 225 pounds on, and now you're into your work sets. So now it's back to 5, set 1. But you're like, well, he just did like 5 other sets. Those are warm-ups.
Yeah.
That's warm-up, right? Yeah, it's additional work, but it's you've got to get warmed up.
And it's you're at that point, you have progressed to that point.
Yeah.
So, we're at a, already at a level that, people, when they're starting, they're not going to do that right off.
Right.
But if you equate that to, one of my least favorite things to do in life is moving. I hate moving.
Yeah.
But
just in general.
Yeah, just in general. No, moving houses.
Right,
like moving.
I know what you're
But
saying.
in general, moving houses. But go get out there to move something. You reach down to pick up a big box and you feel it. You're like, oh,
Yep.
That's what the warm up sets prevent you from doing. You get your muscles engaged, you get them warmed up, and you're ready to go. And that's it's things like that make the technique, practicing the technique, progressing out of that, and doing the warm up sets. It's things like that make weightlifting, a lot less dangerous.
Absolutely.
For people to do.
Yeah. No, just understanding that it's common sense, really. Get yourself warmed up before you do anything.
Right.
It's going to be safer for you. And I'll say this too: the larger the muscles, the more warm up that's required. So, like with squat, you're working a large muscle groups, right? You're working the glutes and the back, and you're basically working every muscle in your body. And so it's going to require more warm up. It's a more exhausting exercise. Deadlift is the same way. It's going to require more warm up to progress you to that point. It's not going to require maybe as many warm up sets to do a row, like a dumbbell row, bent over dumbbell row. I would do maybe 2 or 3 warm up sets there, progressing up to it. So just if the smaller the muscles, the fewer muscles you're working, the more warm up it's going to require. And I'll say this too: if you're working on strength training, then you want to choose exercises that are going to utilize more. They're going to work more muscles. There's a difference between. I think sometimes people maybe don't understand on a foundational level what's the difference between like exercise, cardio, bodybuilding, powerlifting, strength training. Because it really is. There's a lot of differences to these things.
Yeah.
Olympic weightlifting, for example. I know like CrossFit utilizes a lot of Olympic weightlifting techniques plus cardio, right? Kind
Yeah,
of mixes
sure.
together.
Mixes together, yeah.
But I shouldn't talk about CrossFit because I don't know anything about it. You're more
Well, I don't know much about it. I've participated in CrossFit for about 4 months, and it absolutely wore me out. So
that's good.
But
That's good. Yeah.
When you say things like, the gratification comes later, I can
Sure.
Attest that, because you do, as you grow and you are able to put more weight on the bar, and you able to do more reps. There's a good feeling there. It hurts.
Yeah.
There was many times there was many times that I was laying on the floor in a very
right.
uncomfortable state, trying to recover from a
At the
workout.
end.
But
You're trying to keep yourself from throwing up.
yeah, definitely. I mean, that happened 3 or 4 times, but but that it's fun as you're walking out of that place. You kind of accomplish by having that suffering. Just by getting to that point of suffering,
right?
You know that you have accomplished something. But then if you turn it over to sports, when someone's able to hit a ball farther than they've ever hit it before, that is fun. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
So
I think it's important for people to understand that there is a difference in the kinds of activities that people do that is related to lifting weights and physical fitness. And so I think it's important to point that out in an episode where we're actually focusing on strength training for athletic performance, because, for one, I like I said at the beginning, I'm a believer that strength is the basis of better athletic performance. If you want to get better, you got to get stronger. You just have to. You can get more skilled, but you're really not going to get advanced levels better unless you get stronger. And so what we want to do is know how to build strength. And that's different than building a bulky muscle.
Right.
Somebody who's bodybuilding is going to get in the weight room and they're going to do maybe more reps, very slow and controlled, isolating a single muscle. I picture a guy getting behind a preacher curl bench and just slowly controlling a dumbbell up and just contracting that bicep muscle, and he's working on that. We call them beach muscles, right? And same thing for the bench press, working on building that big pec, the big chest as it sticks out as you're walking down the beach. That's not really what we're after. That's not, you don't want to go slow with the bar if you're building strength. We want power,
right?
And so we want to explode, right? And so strength training is different than that kind of thing. We also don't want to just exercise. I'll be honest with you. Exercise it's good for the common person. Everybody should be doing it. It's physical activity that produces the effect that you need for today, right? You want to get sweaty today. You make you feel good. You feel like you did something. You want to be tired. I want that soreness feeling tomorrow morning because I did something to make me feel productive. Exercising is good, but I would say exercise is good for the non-athlete. We should all exercise, right? Every person that's listening to this should be exercising. Athletes need to train.
Yeah.
That's the difference. There's a different mindset and a different work ethic that comes into making your athlete a better athlete, and that is called training. Training is a process of a lot of workouts consistently performed over time with a specific goal of getting stronger. And when you get stronger, as we said at the beginning, you're going to get more powerful.
Yeah.
And so that's what training is. And it's got to be incorporated into your program. It even has to be incorporated into your practices as teams. Find a way to incorporate it into your practices, because ultimately what we're hoping to develop is their performance. And so you combine skills that you develop, that you work on in practice, with the training that you work on in the weight room. That's their total overall performance. If you want great performance on the field, on the court, you got to have both of those things.
Yeah. And I think from a coaching perspective, for those that haven't quite adopted this mentality, or the theory is that they say we don't have time to incorporate this into our practices. But, my argument would be, and I know I've said this, previously, I feel like it's just as important. To strength training is just as important as fielding mechanics. We're working on fielding mechanics. It's just as important as getting in the batting cage. It's important, it's not that you don't have time. You have to make time for it. You have to carve it out of, that probably means taking time away from some of these other things. and people would say, well, we're losing that. We have to have it, but you're not really losing that.
And I guess we should clarify also, if you're talking about strength training as part of your practice, that means that you're talking about strength training during the season.
Oh,
right?
Yes, good point. Which we don't do. Sorry, I'm wrong. Let me retract everything I just said. Or wait, maybe I'm not.
Yeah, we better be doing strength training in the season.
Yeah, no doubt.
If you don't, I mean, I've read, and I wish I could remember where I read it. I wish we need a producer to this show, because then someone could be on the computer constantly and feeding us
in our ear.
Yeah, exactly. But I remember reading that, and I think this is true for everyone, not just athletes, that if you want to build strength, you need to work out at least 3 times a week. And if you want to maintain the strength that you have built, you need to be working out at least 2 times a week. And if you're working out less than 2 times a week, you're not building any strength. You're not maintaining any strength. You're actually, as we get older, we're getting weaker every day. Every person is. And so what happens when programs will have a really great off-season lifting program, strength training program, and then the season starts, practices begin, we don't have time to incorporate any kind of strength training anymore. And so these kids that had lifted really well, in the off season, they go weeks without getting under a barbell. They go weeks without lifting at all. And what's happening is they're losing that strength. And what you're going to find is, again, those teams that are consistently in the state tournament, the state championship games, the regional finals, the state game, I'm almost willing to bet in most sports, the teams that are consistently there, they are in the weight room during the season. They're maintaining the strength that they have.
Yeah.
And to maintain, you don't have to have the same kind of volume. When I say volume, I'm talking about the total number of reps when you combine all the reps and sets, every rep and set that you've done during your strength training program. Like, we get a pretty good workout in an hour and 15 minutes with our softball and baseball teams. But I think that you can maintain the strength that you built in the off season by incorporating a 2-day a week, getting in the weight room for 35, 45 minutes. And instead of doing 5 sets of 5, you do the same lifts with 3 sets of 3. So it's, and so you're able to basically continue to do it. And this is, so then you're like, well, what if that makes them sore? Well, if you're just continuing to do what you've always done, they're not going to be more, you're actually backing off the volume a little bit. So they're not going to develop new soreness. New soreness is developed when you do a new exercise, right? So I wouldn't necessarily introduce a new exercise at this point.
Right.
We just keep doing the same thing we're doing. We'd squat, we'd deadlift. I mean, we talked about it on a previous episode. Michigan Michigan baseball team was in the College World Series. They were getting ready to play in the final games of.
They weren't maintaining. I don't.
Oh,
think
they were developing strength during the season.
Yeah, they were
during the last week.
Right.
College World Series, the championship games. There are videos of that team in there.
I mean, they're
getting after
it. Yeah, they're getting it.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, I would say a lot of people have, at least that's had preconceived notions about this cringe when they saw that. I don't think I saw it live when it was showed on TV, but I went back and watched the videos, and they were really getting it. So, so I guess you answered a question there about seasonal, strength training. That we really want to. This is something that
it's a lifestyle.
It's
a year-round lifestyle.
Yeah. Right. And just like exercise, if you're going to continue to grow, you're going to maintain. You want to do that all the time.
Why would you take 3 months off?
Right, and I have. I'll be honest with you.
You feel terrible when you do it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm ready. And physically. I mean, I want to get back into it.
We're not talking about don't ever take time to rest, or if you feel like you've getting burned out or whatever. Like I'll be honest with you. Here recently, I've completely rearranged like my routine of lifting, because I had about 2 years straight where I was getting up at like 4:45 in the morning, doing some things at home, and then going to work out at 5:30, and I was pretty much doing the same workout, the starting strength workout that you're doing, and I love it. That's the best workout that I think you can do. And what workout I'm talking about is, just Google this, everybody. Google Mark Ripto and the starting strength plan. It is everywhere. He has a website called startingstrength.com. And this guy he's just really good because he provides basic understanding for how to get strong. If the goal is to get strong, it really isn't hard to do. It's actually pretty simple to do.
I think you're right.
The work is hard,
Yeah.
but understanding what it takes, it's not that complicated.
Well, I was working with my older son yesterday. We actually started the program that you're talking about, and there's an app. You showed me that.
Yeah,
the Strong Lifts.
It's a free app.
And you can put some numbers in, and it basically tells the app where you are in your weightlifting experience, and it tells you basically in 12 weeks time, this is what you'll be doing. And I think my son
If
said,
you stay consistent and you progress and you keep adding weight,
Right.
don't just get stuck and say, "Oh, this is all I can do." It's not. You can lift more.
yeah.
Keep
And my
adding
son was like, "Wow, this 45-pound bar seems heavy," and I showed him on that app that if he maintains in 12 weeks, which I think I'll go a little slower, but we'll see.
You might.
It depends.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But in 12 weeks, if you follow the program, you'd be squatting 225 pounds. And he was like, "Wow, how I don't think that's possible."
225 pounds is the 45-pound bar, and then two 45-pound plates on each side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I know from personal experience, and it's not like I'm this huge weightlifting individual or anything.
And neither am I,
Short.
honestly.
Well,
This
you've
is
done
not
a lot
my
more than I
expertise.
have.
I've learned a lot from my own son, who's an exercise physiologist major.
Right. We
exercise science
should
major.
have Brock back on to talk
Right,
about that,
exactly.
actually.
Yeah. He'll probably be listening to this and going, "Oh, gosh.
They're
Dad."
screwing this up.
Yeah.
You bunch of idiots. That's okay.
Because we haven't talked a bit about mobility yet, mobility type work, which is very important, for athletes as well, which is just basically flexibility and power. Yeah, we incorporate a lot of medicine ball work, a lot of plyometric type work. We have them do like yoga type stretching
Yes.
at the end.
Yeah.
And to maintain that flexibility and mobility.
That was actually one of the things that I was really weak about, or I struggled with, was my flexibility. I have, and it's odd because all my life it's not something that I thought that I was lacking. I've always been a fairly little guy, athletic guy, and I would say I was flexible, but now it's definitely my wrists and my shoulders.
yeah,
I just lack flexibility.
Yeah.
But there's things like that you do that allows you to.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just little like back to wall shoulder flexions and things like that, and we'll have kids do like on days, especially when they've squatted heavy, maybe we'll have them at the end do like we call them wall slides, knee to wall slides, where we'll have them put like one butt cheek on the wall and then take the opposite leg and put the knee up against the wall and then lift that knee up and just slide it. And you actually see I've seen a lot of offensive linemen do that kind of thing. Just knee. Those are mobility type work is the stuff that looks silly. But I mean, when you see people doing it, you're like, what the heck? But it's so valuable because it keeps you flexible. It keeps those, because you're just ripping those muscles apart, man, when you work them hard and they're growing. I mean, and I actually, we definitely need to mention this as well. Don't overtrain. When I said they're growing, it kind of triggered in my mind a thought, and that is, when do your muscles grow? Do you know when are they growing while you're actively in the weight room, pushing and pulling? They're actually
when you sleep or when you rest.
Actually growing when you're resting.
Yeah.
And so what happens is if you never. So some people are like, no days off, hashtag, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And you see, if you're in the age of social media, it's all about ego and we don't take any days off. We lift every day. Well, people who lift every day aren't lifting the same muscles every day.
Right. Yes.
And we're talking about building strength. You've got to have some time off. So we do a 3-day-a-week program with our strength training, like with softball. We do Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It's high school. It's hard. I mean, it's you got to adapt, right? But anyway, if you're not resting, then you're actually not giving your muscles a chance to grow. And of course, nutrition is that we've talked a lot about nutrition.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Proper nutrition.
I would say
proper
that's
rest.
the most difficult thing about a workout because we're talking about weightlifting, strength, and agility. But if you're going to get maximum growth out of, if you're going to get maximum potential, you have to adjust your diet.
Yeah.
You just have to.
Yeah. We can't emphasize it enough.
Yeah. So. And then I would say that is a challenging endeavor. It is. It's tough.
It is. We understand it's tough.
Especially when you're an athlete and you're at, you're
busy.
You're a student.
What do buses do after a lot of games? Where do they stop?
Stop by McDonald's. Who wants to go to Burger King?
Stop at Wendy's.
Yeah.
Stop at McDonald's. Stop at this place where we got 4 different options of fast food. And it's I mean, coaches, if you got a chance to to speak with your team parents and say, hey, we're going to provide meals for them at the end of games, before games. We're gonna have a brown bag, fill it up with some vegetables and fruit and maybe a tuna salad sandwich or whatever.
I think this is the thing that I worry about most, or that I feel like will be his toughest challenge. My oldest son on doing this would be definitely the diet, because he's a very picky eater. He does love chicken though, so that's a positive.
That's great. Yeah, get that grilled chicken.
Get the protein in there.
That's right. You can't be comprehensive. You can't be completely exhaustive on this topic. But what do you think, Pat? Have the people that you've talked with and said, hey, are you guys? We'd like to hear an episode about strength training. Would there be anything that we've left out in talking today, that you may think they may want to hear?
I think, most people are just, they want to know, what does a program look like? And I think you gave a couple examples there. Definitely Mark Ripto's program. They can go out and search that, look it up.
I can actually walk you through a sample day that I'm going to do here with our softball team here in the month of October. We're going to begin in October. Most of the girls softball players who aren't playing another sport are playing in a fall league right now, which I'm hit or miss on that. I can do with or without fall leagues. I really honestly, I think they actually, to be honest, I think they'd be getting more if they started strength training right now. They played plenty of softball in the spring and summer, but that's maybe another discussion for another. Well, no, it is this discussion. I will say that. I'll make that claim. I think it's more valuable for them to be getting stronger right now than playing more softball. Yeah. I think there's a time to put the gloves up and start doing it. But that doesn't mean that I didn't do like open fields during the fall. It's good weather. It's fun. We were able to combine working on the field with getting some swings in, things like that. And so open field, as long as fall has that feel to it, I think it's fine. But
you're not saying don't do it. You're just, from a priority perspective, the strength training is more important.
I think from a priority perspective it is. And so they're still going to be in their fall league, but they're just starting to play games here in the middle of September. And so I talked to the coach about just giving them a couple weeks of just playing ball, and then we'll get them, starting in the strength training program. But let's say that let's jump out a few weeks. Let's say we're about a month or so into it. Everybody's lifting. On a given day, we might come in. The first thing we'll do, and we have exactly an hour. We have the facility for an hour for this team. We'll come in, and the first thing we'll do is first thing we actually do is we have them all wash their hands, because whatever germs they're bringing into the weight room, it's the first thing and last thing that they do is they wash their hands. It's just a routine that we've developed. And after they wash their hands, they come over to the whiteboard, and on the whiteboard, I have already written out the entire plan for the day. These are the warm-up exercises we're going to do. When I say warm-up, I mean dynamics. This is what we're going to do for dynamic warm-up. And then this is what we're going to do. These are the lifts we're going to do today. Are there any questions about how to perform any of these lifts? If so, I will demonstrate right now, and I'll make sure that you're able to do it as well. And there's usually more than one coach in there. There's at least one other one with me. And we will do our dynamic warm-up. That'll consist of about 6 to 8 exercises such as walking lunge, the old Frankenstein walks, and the high knees and butt kicks and karaokes and stop starts. We'll do a lot of sprints. We'll do sprints from different positions. Like I'll have them get on one knee and do one knee starts. I'll have them laying down with their hands out like they dove back into a first base bag, and I'll have them get up and go.
Oh, nice.
We
the opposite way.
Call them get ups. Yeah. So we'll do quick start sprints, and we're doing these inside the weight room. So when I say sprints, I'm talking about at most 20 to 30 feet of space, and so we get them good and sweaty, and then they will start their routine, their program, and it usually will consist of we'll have everybody work in pairs, because they all have a spotter. So you're doing a work set, and your partner's spotting you, and it will all we squat every day. When I say every day, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, squat is where they always begin.
Yeah,
we squat every day.
It's a very important movement.
And so, like, let's say if it's Monday, we'll squat, and then it'll be probably a bench press. We'll probably do bench press, and then the next lift will be a row, and then on Wednesday we'll squat, and then we'll do some kind of pull up, like TRX band pull-ups or some kind of pull-up type of work. We may do a shoulder raises series. And you notice I'm skipping the overhead press.
Yeah.
Like on Ripto's program, and when I do it, I do the overhead press.
Yeah.
But with throwing athletes, I like to stay away from overhead lifts with weight as much as possible because they're stressing that rotator cuff so much anyway. And so we will do, instead of overhead press, I'll have them do a shoulder raises series with really tiny hand weights.
Gotcha.
And so those are some little nuanced things that, you know, if you got any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'll explain more detail. But then once they get through the main lifts, we always include a lot of things we'll include things like medicine ball thrusts, pushes, medicine ball scoops. We'll do some box jumps and things like that as well for explosiveness and power. We'll do, we don't do a lot with ladder. Well, anything I do with ladders is more infield footwork type stuff.
Sure.
You know, I'll have them do right, left, and get there, you know, kind of get a feel for when to get your glove down, understanding what the athletic position looks like. You know, we don't have our infielders creeping with their butts down on the glove, weight down on the ground. You're not very athletic. You're not very explosive from that. So we teach our infielders to get in sort of a, you know, partially bent. You know, you're a little more upright than what you're used to seeing people out on the infield with their thumbs up, and they're able to move quick right to left. We just kind of work on that kind of stuff just a little bit in the weight room, but for the most part, it's just about building strength.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure they get the main lifts in.
So when you go through your main lifts, you say, are you using Ripto's 5x5 method in most cases? How many reps per set are they doing?
We're doing 5 sets of 5 for all of those main lifts. So for the bench, and for the squat, deadlift, bench, the rows, the presses, we're doing 5. When we get into things like pull-ups, I'll have them do maybe 3 sets of 10 or 3 sets of 9. And pull-ups are tough because what I've discovered about girls is naturally they tend to be more naturally strong in the lower body, but when they have to do upper body exercises, those are the ones they shy away from a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost the opposite with guys. It seems like guys are always wanting to skip leg day, right?
Huh,
But they love the upper body stuff because they want the big arms and shoulders. And I'm not, the girls want it too, but it's just, I don't know, it might not be true across the board. It's just one of the things I've observed personally is it seems like they struggled more with the upper body lifts than they did. Their lower bodies were actually surprisingly strong.
Huh, yeah.
They enjoyed the squats and anything that we did like that. So yeah, and I guess that answers another question. Do we do anything different for girls than we do boys?
Right.
I've worked them both out, and we do the exact same thing.
What about different
there's
sports?
Some variations.
You mentioned the overhead press for baseball or softball because in those two sports you're already putting a lot of stress on your shoulder and things like that.
And those are the kinds of things you got to think about. And that's where guys where Mark Ripto is good as a good resource for building strength, just a basis of strength.
Yep.
A guy like Eric Cressy Sports Performance, guys like Zach Decant, guys like there are a lot of guys out there. I mean, Driveline Baseball is doing a lot. They're putting a lot more out about lifting as well. People who work out for these kinds of sports, throwing athletes, ball and bat sports, they understand the stresses that your shoulders are going to have, your elbows are going to have, your joints, and so those are good resources to go to and say, okay, instead of bench press, we don't necessarily want to build a big chest as a pitcher, right? What kind of bench? So yeah, we do bench press, but most kids aren't going to build a big chest. They're just not. They're not. I mean, you got to be. You got to be pretty committed if you're going to build a big chest. So we don't shy away from the barbell on a bench press. But the reason I like using a dumbbell for pitchers is because the range of motion is greater and you have greater control. And sometimes with a barbell, your right arm may be a little stronger than your left or vice versa. And so when there's that slight chance that you're not going to have the same range of motion, but you're forced to, you know what I'm saying? It's hard to explain. You can just tweak something just a little bit. That's why I don't like Smith machines. Anything that kind of assists you, I would rather have the bar on my back and have to balance it myself than to have a machine with some hydraulics on the side, balancing it with me, because that little bit of assistance can sometimes tweak a muscle or a joint or something,
sure.
and just cause a problem.
And that balance is part of the what I'd say it definitely helps your core, but it's
Sure.
also the functional that we're talking about.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so
It's where we began with the little kids, right? The most
Right.
important thing. I mean, if they don't have balance, we got to work on that first.
Yep.
You know, until they are able to do 50 squats without falling over, they should never have a weight in their hand.
yeah,
Do
there
50
you go.
body squats,
Right, definitely.
without falling over
and in proper form.
in proper form.
Yeah.
And that'd be that way for anyone. So
And you know, if you're starting this with your kid or something, I mean, I am. I'm not an expert by any means. I'm looking out at these resources, looking up YouTube videos, pictures, things like that, and just trying to, compare what they look like to what these what these people on YouTube and stuff like that look like. So, I think we're probably getting way past our time here, but
yeah, we're coming up near an hour.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
all
But
right. We talked
tell
about
you,
this the other day. We said
we don't have a time limit.
time
anymore.
limit's gone. We're
Yeah.
not going to mention time
That's right.
anymore, but
We just did.
we'll
Let me say this though,
Okay.
real quick, and that is keep it fun. Because if it's not fun, if it's especially for the little kids, right? I mean, it's going to be exciting at first because it's something new, right? But it's not going to stay exciting. It's mundane. It hurts, right? And so we always add in some competition as
yes.
well, especially when we're working on a team, because you want to compete. I mean, athletes want to compete, and so we will compete at the end of every day. Well, if we run out of time, we don't, because there's usually another team waiting to come in. And so if we run out of time, we don't. But we'll try to fit in some type of competition at the end of every day, or sometimes we'll have an entire day of competitions. We'll say, hey, this week is Competition Friday.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and we'll do things like relay races where they got to carry plates and plate stack relay races. We'll do tire flips, or we have these big boxes that are padded boxes. You can flip those instead if you're inside. We'll do tug of war. We'll split them up in the two teams. We'll do best out of 5 tug of war, and just let them get after it. We'll crank the music up and just let them pull, and things like that. If we can get out on the football field, if you got a big space and you can do some competitions. What competition does is it breaks up the monotony. It gets them competing. It create, you're usually going to be doing exercises that are going to develop some explosiveness, but also cardiovascular. I mean, your heart rate's going to be up. But honestly, you're going to find out when you squat, your cardiovascular, your heart rate's going to be high.
Sure, right.
You're working cardio when you squat, when you deadlift.
Yeah,
So-
definitely.
So yeah, I mean, I'm not saying don't do it. We sprint. You got to sprint. Athletes have got to get out there and sprint. There are so many different things. People are like, what do you do all these little ladder drills, these cone drills and things like that? But really, one of the best things you can do for agility is to sprint. Just get out there and sprint. Just run.
Yep.
So a lot of kids don't know how to run. They know how to do cone drills really well, or ladder drills, and their feet are really quick. But you watch them run, they're like, something's not right there.
Right.
Just learn. The most athletic thing you can do, the two most athletic things you could do, is a pull up and run, sprint.
Everyone thinks they know how to run properly, but if you do a good quick Google search, you'll probably find out different.
That's true.
And it's working on that's big. And the other thing is it's not about long distance, especially for baseball, softball.
Yeah.
It's not about long distance.
We should probably we could probably get a lot of people arguing with us about that.
Right.
Who are just basically holding on to,
Yeah.
who have no data to back it up, but
Right.
but just because it's what we've always done. Right.
Yes.
As soon as a pitcher's done, they go out there and they run a bunch of poles,
Right.
jog a bunch.
Get
of
the
poles.
lactic acid out of your muscles. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, sprint.
Yeah, like you were saying
So
too,
quick
in the
burst
gym,
sprints.
just quick burst,
Yep.
explosiveness,
Yeah.
in and out. So
Yeah.
this probably won't be the last episode we spend on this. We hope to have some people on, but
It'll be sprinkled throughout, because everyone we have on as a guest who's a coach, and we're not going to have people on who don't really kind of know their stuff.
right.
And everyone who knows anything about being a good athlete is going to mention getting strong.
Yeah.
It's like I said at the beginning. If you're not doing it, get out of coaching, because you're not helping the kids be the best they can be.
Right.
You got to do it.
I agree.
Resign.
I think it's a must. I really
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't go back on what I've said. I've been saying it for months now. It's just as important as the skill work. I believe that. So
And the results prove it.
yeah.
The results prove it.
Well, our eyes prove it. Like we
Yeah.
talked about with the young kids. So
Yeah.
it's very important. But we'll keep hitting it. And if you have any questions out there, if you have any opposing views, please reach out to us and let us know. As always, when we started the podcast, we want you to join our discussion. So we're still there. But thanks for listening.